The first step is discuss the problem with operators. So you want to discuss this problem, I call them operators, with the people that are up close. You might call them frontline employees. You might call them outwardly facing team members, whatever you call them. The people that are interacting with the guests, with the clients, the customers, those frontline people that are interacting, get their perspective on the problem. You want to talk to them. You want to talk to people that are close to the problem. Maybe it doesn't reach all the way to those frontline employees. Maybe it's kind of a middle management challenge that you're facing. Then you want to talk to those managers right there in the thick of it. Too often, I work with executive leaders and they want to keep their own counsel, or they want to talk to me, right? But they want to keep their own counsel. What do I mean by that? I mean, they might discuss things with me. They might discuss things with, a spouse, or maybe with one or two other people at the very top level of leadership. They'll have conversations with it, but they won't leverage the other people in their organization. They won't leverage the mind power, the thinking power of those other managers that they lead, other team members in the organization that could shed light on the situation and give a different perspective on the situation. Now, why don't they do this? I don't want to deep dive into it, but a few speculations on why people don't do this. It could be that, unfortunately, some leaders don't value their team's opinion. They just don't value it. They don't think they have anything worth saying, so they don't ask for their opinion. Let me tell you, your team feels that if that is how you feel. If they feel that you don't value their opinion, they feel that. It might be that the leader's insecure. It might be that they don't know how to receive feedback and still reserve the right to someone wrote ego. Yeah, it could be ego. But they don't know, they might not know how to reserve the right to make that final decision. They might feel like if someone gives me feedback, then I have to do what they say. No, you don't. You're the leader, right? Part of your responsibility is to make the final decision. But the best way to make the final decision, make the best decision, is to get that feedback. So number one, you want to discuss with operators. Number two, you want to download data. So you want to examine reports, secondary data, papers related to what you're talking about. Is there something on LinkedIn? Is there an article written? Is there research done on this topic? And I'm going to give an example when we're done with this. But you want to seek out those types of things when you're doing that. You want to seek out that data. Don't make a decision based on subjective experiences, right? Everybody has their perspective, and that's wonderful and that's great, and that's what is informing them on what's going on. But at the same time, sometimes those opinions, those points of view are inaccurate. There's limited information. They don't see a full picture. So you need to get some data, do some research, dig in on what the root problem may be. Search it out, figure out some experts that might have some experience on that subject. And then finally, you want to deliberate with partners and stakeholders. So you want to consult with people that your decision is going to affect. And this is a great way to float an idea. I talk about vision buy-in in the book. I talk about how to lead a meeting and have a meeting before the meeting and talk to key people, key influencers in your organization. A great way, if you're trying to roll something out and you feel, man, there's been pushback. I think I solved this problem and I want to roll out a plan. Even if you have solved the problem, you do well to discuss with key stakeholders, key individuals in the organization, what you're thinking about, what you think the actual problem is, how you've come to that conclusion, and have those conversations with them and get that feedback. Find out if they agree. Many times, if you think you might have the problem and you float it with a person that maybe they were unwilling to tell you some information or a conversation they had with a person that's disgruntled or upset because they didn't want to out that person. If you say, hey, this is what I think the problem is, and kind of float the idea out there, or you might say, hey, we are considering making this move because we think this is the problem. Your team may be more willing to say, I think you're accurate on that. I think you're right with your assessment of the problem. So it's a great way to get great feedback. There was a Harvard Business Review article written by a consultant named Jennifer Porter, and she talks about skillfully getting feedback. And what she says is this. She said many times asking for, what feedback do you have doesn't get you the response as a leader that you're looking for. Instead, you can ask for specific events like, what did you hear when I shared my strategy, right? Kind of in your own words, what did you hear me say? That's a classic one. That's a great question to ask. You might ask another question this way: how often do I interrupt people in meetings, right? If there's some kind of worrisome behavior that's been brought to your attention, you might say, hey, how often do I interrupt people in meetings? I'm kind of in go mode and I don't realize it, and get that specific feedback. Another question you could ask is, how did it feel when I sent that email? How did it feel to you when I sent that email? What was the kind of the emotional response to how I sent the email? I thought I was clear. I thought I was upfront, but I want to get your perspective on it. And then finally, if you're asking for a recommendation, you can say, hey, what can I do to help build my relationship with John, right? If you're seeking feedback, you've got to ask great questions of your team. And all of that information is going to help you properly diagnose the problem that you're looking at. All right, so let's do a hypothetical here as I take another drink of water. All right, so a hypothetical here, which is not much of a hypothetical. It's kind of the time that we're in right now that I'm seeing with some of my clients, is that people are seeking a lot of resignations, and people are going elsewhere, right? They're going to the competition and they're getting paid more. So you might just say, you know what? We are losing good people to the competition. The competition is paying more. There's our problem, right? That's the problem. That's what we've determined. They're paying more. So what do we have to do? We just have to pay more. We have got to pay people more, and that's going to solve the problem. Well, I can tell you just from personal experience, from being in the coaching room with people, that one-on-one setting, that safe, protective, and trusting environment where people tell me all kinds of stuff, right? 90% of the time, it's not money. 90% of the time, it is not money. Now, there are those rare occasions. I had a coaching session just yesterday, and the decision was about money, and that's okay. It was just a straightforward, like, hey, I like working here, but I've kind of hit the lid on what I can make here, and I have to go somewhere else so that I can have a greater income. Hey, that's fine, right? That's very straightforward. But I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, when I'm having that conversation with someone that wants to leave the organization, it is not about money. So just food for thought there. But so let's go through this process, right? The first step, discuss with operators. So what you want to do in this situation is you're probably not going to get feedback from the individual that quit. If they didn't give you feedback yet, they don't want to start a fire, throw a bomb on their way out. And so they kind of gave you a bland response that, oh yeah, they can pay me more, so I'm going. And they did that. They didn't tell you the real reason why they're leaving. So what can you do? Well, you can go to their friends. You can go to other people in the organization and say, hey, I really want to solve this problem of we're seeing people leave. And I know we're seeing your friends leave. I don't know. You don't have to tell me names or anything like that, but from your perspective, why do you think people are leaving? And then just listen, right? Just listen to that feedback. And some of you, don't take this the wrong way, but some of you need to get better with your poker face, okay? When you hear something, you take it so personally. When someone says, it's not the greatest environment to work at, or you don't really listen to your leaders, you just make your own decisions up, and we just have to change everything we're doing overnight without being consulted. And you go, that's not true. That's not right. And you get all upset and blustery. And that's why people don't give you feedback. If you're struggling to receive feedback, it's probably because of that. I was a youth pastor many years ago. And, when you sit in a room with a young person and they tell you whatever it is, their deepest, darkest secret, whatever failing they had, whatever mistake they've made, you've got to be very careful not to go, you did what? What? Gross, or whatever. You can't make them feel horrible. They already feel horrible, so you can't make them like a pariah. You can't make them this dirty person for whatever mistake they've made. You just keep a straight face and you go, okay, we can overcome this. We can do this, right? And that's how I learned my poker face and how to deal with people's problems and what's going on and what they're embarrassed or ashamed of, the decision they've made. Look at yourself in the mirror. Practice what your face looks like when someone shares some feedback with you. And if you get better at that, you're going to get more feedback right away. But number two, we want to download data, right? So we've got this problem. People are resigning. They're going somewhere else. They're going to the competition. What do I do? You need to get data. So do you have any emails? Do you have any conversations with individuals on why they left? Do you have any market research on why people are leaving? People are much more, likely to answer a poll or a survey anonymously than they would just to give you that feedback. So find out, why are people generally leaving right now? Hey, you might go searching on the internet and come across an amazing article from a guy named Drew T. Jackson, right? On how to retain your top talent. And if you do that, you'd find this out. You'd find out that at least 75% of voluntary turnover is because of a lack of career progression, poor fit, flexibility, or management directly. That says nothing about pay. So that's some interesting data. And we have to go through and ask ourselves, as we're trying to solve the problem, right? We're trying to diagnose the actual problem. We have to figure out, hey, were they just topped out on career progression? If so, okay, how can we solve that? Is that a solvable problem? Was it a poor fit? Did their skill sets not line up? Are we not being flexible? I know a lot of people, an individual I'm actually married to, the work from home thing is real for her. And she loves working from home. And if that were to change, that would be a big deal, right? And there are a lot of people out there that they're in the same boat. Or is it management directly? Are the people that they reported to, maybe we need to do a job satisfaction survey, an anonymous job satisfaction survey, and find out, do our team members like working with their leaders? Do they feel like it's a trusting environment where they can come to their leader with challenges and problems? And then number three, deliberate with partners and stakeholders. So you need to talk to people in your organization, go back to people at every level that could be affected by this, your team members, your leaders. Hey, this is what we think the problem is. We think that we need to work on developing our culture. And that starts with us at the top. We need to get better at sharing information and soliciting feedback. And I feel like if we did that the team would be stronger and people wouldn't leave. What do you think? Right? You kind of have that conversation with them, and then they give you feedback, and you get to the root of that problem. So that is a 3-step process that you can put into practice to get to the root of the problem.